There is only one power and one presence in the universe, God the good, all power, ever present, all knowing, and we are one. And our vision statement: we are a spiritual community with a passion to share love, faith, and hope. And our mission statement: we are an accepting, loving, and faith-filled spiritual community that honors all paths to God. Announcements. I don't have any announcements at this time that I can think of. Does anyone on the floor have an announcement, or does Sandra, do you have anything you would like to announce? You'll have to unmute yourself.
I don't have any announcements, but I think it's the first Sunday in December. And so if there are any December birthdays, happy birthday.
Thank you. Happy birthday. Okay, tithes and offerings. I just want to thank you for your presence today. That is one of the greatest offerings I think you can give, because I think your presence alone makes a huge difference. And now for the Our Father.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
And within the openness, you will be receiving sensations, images, feelings, impressions, and be open to whatever is present. In this space of stillness and quietude, you are simply allowing the answers that you've been looking for, as you release everything else. Here, as you release everything, there is a sense of completion, and that somehow everything is just fine. Bring your attention to your breath. Accepting everything that is coming to you. You may ask a question, or maybe you've asked a question this week, or this month, or this year. And now allow yourself to see the vision of an answer, a vision that is possible for you. And a new possibility awaits. It awaits you on a path. Let go of the old path. And on this new path, you can see the colors, the surroundings, the trees, the green, blue sky. Your path might have beautiful snow on it. Your path could be a rainbow. Whatever your path is, just let it appear in front of you. Breathe. Allow. Notice what's coming to you. Start walking that path. And as you walk, the scenery may change. And it changes for you. It changes just for you. A flower suddenly blooms in front of you. It blooms just for you. And on this path, there may be a branch that you step on. Sometimes life trims the trees. So we just step over the branches that needed to be trimmed, so that new life can come through. And that life is stronger now. As we're walking on this path, we suddenly notice our heart beats strong, beats consistently. And our heart points to something too. It points to our feelings, and we're guiding you on the next action, the next step in your life, the next words to say, the next celebration. And our heart doesn't use words to speak to us. It uses feelings. And our heart is of the voice of God speaking to us through our feelings. And notice what you're feeling. If there's any discomfort, that may mean that something needs to be changed within yourself. Another direction, perhaps. It may mean changing a perspective. If you're open, it may mean moving towards joy. Because I believe that's where we all want to be. And in a strange way, the path that we're on, and the beautiful scenery, in every step, is an opportunity to walk with joy, with wonder, and trust. And when we are open, we see the beauty on this path, the beauty of it. And when we are open, we're not seeing with our own physical eyes, but with the eyes of love. So we quietly go into the stillness and the silence. See with the eyes. And in our openness, we are allowing God's vision for ourselves and glimpsing the journey of that vision. And feel a sense of completeness, of warmth, and thankfulness. Slowly notice our breath again. Notice our hand and return to the room. Return to the manifestation, the journeys we are creating. Supporting each other as we are love, sharing love is for me. So I have about 50 sentences here that describe what openness is for me, and maybe it's for you too. And so I just want to share what I wrote. So I wrote, I cannot say what openness is, but I can observe some of my experiences. And I believe openness is a practice. It is a spiritual practice. And it's in the state of openness when we suspend our beliefs and our thoughts and our points of view, we become open. And we become open to something greater than ourselves, greater than our thinking mind. We become open to a greater consciousness. Now, I don't know about you, but my beliefs say this is how things should be. This is the right way, and that's the wrong way. But when I am open, and I believe when we are open, we leave that thinking behind and become a channel to the wisdom of unconditional love. And I think that's what Jesus was pointing to, and that's what Jesus did. Unity calls that when we are open, we allow ourselves to be with the Christ energy that is now free to come through us. And when it does, we have a feeling of freedom. So when we are open, there is a feeling of freedom that joins us. So I might not know what openness is, but I've had moments when I've experienced freedom. And now I can say, I was open at that time. When we are defensive, or when I justify a point of view or put my walls up in order to protect myself or to be safe, what I'm doing is really protecting a thought. I'm protecting a belief. I'm protecting a point of view. And as long as I'm protecting something, I am no longer open. So openness holds a vulnerability. It holds a tenderness. It holds a defenselessness. In a world where we are trained and taught to put up walls and to protect and defend. So it's just the opposite of a lot of my teachings of the world, and including a lot of religions that I've been exposed to. But openness, I think, is a spiritual practice. And when we were truly open, there is a sense that we are a part of everything. And that's important for me to say. So I'm going to say it again. When we are open, there's a sense that we are a part of everything, that somehow the boundaries between me and you become blurred, and it becomes more of an usness. And when that happens, we are being part of God's energy, which is a part of everything. And so that's where that feeling comes from, that sense of belonging to the whole comes from. And that's why community is so important, because we get to experience that together. And when we're a part of something, when we are part of everything, there is an impulse to want to help the whole to contribute to the whole of everything. And it's a natural impulse. It just arrives. It's spontaneous. And when we are open, there is a feeling of connection to yourself. And we want to contribute in our own unique ways. In other words, love gets to expand through us when we are open and uses our gifts. So when you see kindness, you are seeing someone who is open. A child in playful joy is being open to the joy that is right here. And that joy is always right here. It has never left. The only time it doesn't appear is when we leave, because we forgot to be open to joy. And at our core, we are inseparable from everyone else and everything else. And I'm going to share a personal story. When I was in college, I failed calculus for the first time, and I was determined not to fail it the second time. And so I was outside at a picnic table in my yard with my calculus book open with 20 pages, doing problem after problem after problem, totally focused. And after 2 hours of intense focus and determination to understand calculus, a stillness came upon me, a profound peace. There was a little bit of a ringing in my ears, a sound. And then suddenly I looked at the tree right next to me, and I was one with that tree. And that's the first time I realized that there is another dimension here. And in that dimension, we are inseparable. And at our core, we are connected to everything, to each other. And when I focus on neutral activities that have no past, and I was focusing on calculus, which is numbers and arithmetic, there was no past for me. There were no worries. There was no drama. There was no right or wrong, no needing anything. And when I was focusing on that, something very neutral, I became open. And God spoke to me in that openness. I glimpsed what God always has known, that we are one. But it wasn't an intellectual experience. It was an experience of the heart, at the feeling level. And I think that's what we are all longing for. When we meditate, we are building an inner foundation to allow ourselves to be more easily open. And when we are open, we instinctively want to be of benefit to ourselves and others. Spontaneous moments of deeper understanding that holds tremendous benefit. And we call these benefits insights at times. Or in moments of reflection, or an impulse to go at a certain place at a certain time, an impulse to say something. And it's spontaneous, as if we are inspired to do that. And when we experience that, we are experiencing openness. Heaven, it's to me is a place that's right here, is always willing to share love and offer love 24/7. And when we are open, that love becomes available to us. And when we naturally are open, we want to share that too and become, in a way, like God. We want to share love. And that's where our life begins and ends, in the sharing of love. And it's not I should or need to or it looks right. It is just a spontaneous thing that is without thought. And so when we are open, we are without thought. We leave our intellect behind. And I'll talk a little bit more on that later, but So these are profound statements in my view. And when we are open and with love, we naturally love ourselves. And that is also a thoughtless experience, but we can feel it. And that love is not ours. It's something that is ever present and radiates to us like the sun radiates light. And when we choose to accept, and we get to choose to accept or not accept love. But when we are open, we naturally accept the gift of love and the light that is offered to us moment by moment. I believe the place of heaven has a grand vision for everyone, and that vision revolves around the infinite ways that we can choose to share love. And in some ways, our gifts and the way we share love are infinite, which is a reflection of the infinity of heaven being expressed on earth. And when we are with love, we feel love and want to share these feelings. The unconditional love is right here. And it's the love that God is sharing with you and with me. And when we are open to that, then we want to move with it. There is no separation between heaven and earth, except when we believe there is. And our beliefs thus separate ourselves from heaven, and from heaven being manifested on earth. And our beliefs include being right, being wrong, the belief in loss, even the belief in sin, I believe separates us from God. The belief in our unfairness, any belief in being a victim, separates ourselves from God because we've stopped being open to what God is offering, to another way of understanding, to another way of seeing things. And when you can see the facets of love in action, like kindness and caring, and excitement and joy, you are seeing heaven being manifested on earth. You are seeing the practice of openness. Now, in heaven, there is no hiding, for heaven cannot hide the qualities of love. And so hiding anything within ourselves goes against our innate nature. But when we are open to the qualities of love, then we are vulnerable. We no longer hide anything within ourselves. We don't hide what we're feeling. And then we can see it for more of what it is. And if you were to glimpse heaven, it would look something like this. It is a community of nakedness where everyone is seeing each other beautiful and instantaneously knowing that they are being seen beautiful by everyone else. And to me, that is the essence of a community. When we see each other beautiful and we know that we are being seen as beautiful by everyone else, then we want to be more. We want to express ourselves. We are free to be who we are. We don't have to act anymore. We don't have to pretend to be good, because when we allow that openness, goodness naturally arises. And when we are with that goodness, when we are with the facets of love, we are more. We know ourselves and experience ourselves as more. And what is more? Well, being more is being with the movement of love, being expressed in our unique ways. So the deeper meaning of more in our English language simply means more love. Everything here is in relationship to this place, to heaven. that is right here. And when we practice openness, we get to experience being more. And we want to share our moreness. And that comes across as joy, as passion, as excitement, as inspiration. And we want to enlist others in their moreness too. We want them to be more with us because we want them to know how beautiful it is to be more. And again, more is being more with love. I do reach to be more by being more open so that I can be with more love and that I can have more to share. Drink this, he said, and give thanks. Jesus said that from the Bible at the Last Supper. And when I read that, Jesus was open and love poured into him. Love poured into his openness, and he drank that love. And this is our journey too. But I think if you're like me, you've forgotten. Because if you're like me, you are of the way of the world. This is right, that's wrong, what's wrong with this world, judgments, the inability to accept things. But when we are open, we are naturally accepting everything because that's what God does anyways. And in that acceptance, we have a clarity of what to do next. And in that clarity is the benefit of how we can benefit the world. So we are leaving the judgments of right and wrong and being part of the flow of being a benefit to everyone. And that's where life is at. It's not in our head. It's in the openness that we allow and then want to move with that openness. All right, I write, the hands of God are extended outward as the body of love. And in this earthly realm, we are held by the hands of God. And these hands of God, is not the center of God, but it is an extension of God. And we call this extension our soul, our higher consciousness, the Christ energy. And when we are open to this, we feel at ease. There is a relaxedness and an inner peace. And what we are doing is when we feel that relaxedness and that inner peace, we are feeling the hands of love, the hands of God upon us. And that's what that is. When we just meditated and we felt peace, we were feeling the hands of God upon us. How close is love? It is right here. It is nowhere else. Do you remember? And one of the ways we remember is through our feelings. When we are angst and upset or angry, then we are forgetting love. But those feelings are also pointing and reminding us that we forgot love. And when we are in joy and compassion, we are remembering love. And our feelings are telling us when we are remembering. And when we are open, we feel energized because the love that we are allowing is feeding every cell in our body. When we are open, there is a sense of belonging and mattering and purpose. There is a sense of empowerment and expanding outward. We want to show ourselves, here I am. But when we are not open, we kind of want to hide ourselves and recline. So in a way, openness is fearlessness. When we are open, there is a natural fearlessness there. The fearlessness to show ourselves. There is a sense that it's possible. And there is also a trust in openness. And we don't trust ourselves, but we trust in our ability to stay open And that's where the trust is. And when we are open, we intuitively know how to benefit ourselves and others. So a big part of trust is just the practice of being open. And when we are open, life then defines a vision for ourselves. And that vision includes the wholeness of everything, because we are not separate, just as it is in heaven. And love is always revealing itself through a grand vision of ourselves. It spontaneously reveals itself through moments of insights. And which reminds me of a quote by Nelson Mandela, and you guys have heard this. It originated by Marianne Williamson. And it goes like this: our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. In our light, not our darkness, that is what most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small doesn't serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were meant to shine. And when we experience openness, we experience the deepness of ourselves, and we shine, and it's beautiful. Sometimes being open means saying goodbye. It means letting go of what is not working so that we can be free to follow something else. And so letting go of people, letting go of places, letting go of things, so that we can be true to the love bubbling from within, but only when we are open. Sometimes saying goodbye, I would say all the time, saying goodbye is saying hello to what is calling us. That there's an energy right here calling us to be known and expressed through us. And so sometimes I look in the mirror and say, hello, pleased to meet you, as if I'm meeting myself for the first time. And I say, I've been looking for you. And when I reach out and to shake my hand in the mirror, of course the mirror does not reach back to shake my hand because it's a mirror. And so I'm open to that too. I'm open to, well, this is a problem. So what's the solution? So I become open, and suddenly a solution naturally arises, and I didn't have to think about it. And so now I give high fives to the mirror. Nice to meet you, high five. So now there's another problem. I have fingerprints and handprints all over my mirror now. And when I'm open for that solution, I'll receive it. Because now I have alcohol wipes around my house, so maybe I can just wipe down my mirror, once a week. And it's easy peasy. The solutions just appear. So imagine a community practicing openness. But to be open, we suspend the beliefs and loss and wrongness and what we should do and blaming. Which never felt good. And openness will always, always feel good. I can't control anything. I can't control anything about me. I can't control you guys. Really, the only thing I can control is whether I'm open or not. And in that openness, there is a sense of completeness, that I don't have to control anything. I'm complete. And I can't explain why I feel complete at times. But I just wonder if that completeness is the completeness of God that God is sharing with me. And I'm just open to it. And I don't have to do anything. I just have to follow what's bubbling up within me and be open to that. So love is flowing into the openness that I am creating. And this is me tending the ground. This is what the Bible talks about, tending the ground for things to grow. And that tending the ground is the practice of being open. And for me, part of that openness is actually stopping thinking. I can't stop thinking for very long, but I can stop thinking for a few seconds, and then 5 minutes later, stop thinking again for a few seconds, and then 5 minutes later, stop thinking for a few seconds, and then I forget to stop thinking, and then 3 hours later, I said, oh, why don't I take a minute and stop thinking? And when I stop thinking just for a few seconds at a time, I am practicing openness. And openness holds a broader view, because God is the broader view. It puts things in perspective for me. So if I need perspective, I practice openness, and I can receive I perceive perspective. And always in that perspective it's okay. Things aren't quite the way I thought they were. Openness holds flexibility. And when we are openness, we are open to the all-knowing. And we are open to intuitively knowing what needs to be changed. What new course of action needs to be taken. And that flexibility is spontaneous. It's a spontaneous action that becomes obvious when we practice openness. Just a few short moments of not thinking, here and there. And openness holds the presence of acceptance. And when we are open, we instinctively become more accepting of others and the situation we're in. And acceptance is not fighting with life. When I don't like things, then I obsess about that and I judge. I am fighting life, my life. But when I'm open, I am allowing God's life to come through me and be with me. And there is an acceptance there. And in that acceptance, I find peace. And peace is also of God. So acceptance, peace, completeness, it just builds on itself. And now I have to get used to this new way of living. I want to get used to this new way of living. And in openness, there is a sense of perfection and beauty. And whenever we see beauty, people say, oh, look at that beautiful mountain. In that moment, they are open. They are not seeing the mountain. They are seeing with the eyes of God that sees everything as beautiful. So how do we transfer that experience to everything we look at? How do we be open to the sight of God? Well, just set the intention. I want to be open. In openness, we do not have to think to find the solutions, because the solution is already present and will naturally present itself when we are open. And in openness, we don't have to think about the solution. And then there is a natural mental stability when we are open, because openness holds a sense of calmness. Openness holds a sense of understanding and compassion. Short moments of openness, short moments of just not thinking. And there is a sense of empowerment that rises. And when we see people who are very creative, they are being open to the life that's coming through them. So all creativity is from God and of God, and we are just being open to that. The deeper understanding and compassion are born from openness. A sense, when we sense our body, when we can feel our body, the sensations, we can only do that because we share the awareness of God. And we share the awareness of God only when we're open. So you look around, you can see openness all around you. And you can see when people are not open. And when we are anchored to heaven, to this place, to Christ consciousness, we can maneuver around thoughts, we can maneuver around outer conditions more gracefully and more lovingly. We would just know how to respond and what to do in a way that benefits everyone. And we would do it in a relaxed way. This I've experienced, but I've also experienced the other way too. And I would prefer, in my practice of openness, to continue making decisions from love. In openness, we naturally latch on to our own grandness and the vision of ourselves, no matter what is happening outside, and it's all okay. And here's the question: when we identify with our points of view, our thinking, are we open? And so that's my question to you. And that's the end of my lesson. So thank you for being open to listening to some of these thoughts, to these ideas. And the meeting is open.
When you speak of openness, what comes to me is that place of resting in the divine space inside of ourselves. And from that place, when I can come to that place, all of the negative experiences uncomfortable experiences that I may experience throughout my day, they just disappear. So there's no concern. So I really like that, Mark. That's a good reminder. Thanks.
I resonate with what you just said, because when I'm open, then all the angst just kind of disappears. It's like it never really mattered. I was identified with something else that was not of God. And if it's not of God, it was not really real. But what is real is the feeling I'm feeling of this peace and kind of knowing what to do next. Thanks.
Well, when I think of openness, it reminds me of our mind is really like a radio. It's open to whoever we tune it into. So an open mind. When I like to think of maximum and minimum, and so I would suppose the source would be the greatest example of openness, because the source has unconditional love. So when it comes down to Daniel, I was thinking, yeah, it's very easy. It's a word that's very easy to pass off and say, oh yeah, I'm open-minded. And so as a test on that, I was thinking of all the words that the source with unconditional love, how they would respond to. And I would say, well, there's a gap here, because if I think of words like, say, a dark closet, or a person who talks and brings conversation of fear, well, we can say this person is a Democrat or Republican. I can see all of a sudden that there's a term, I think it's called symbols. We have some words bring a close symbol that we immediately turn off to and reject it. Other things bring an open symbol like a heart and a Valentine, and oh yeah, I'm open to all the ideas on that. So I think that we can give ourselves a good testing by listing all the things we don't like, um, and saying, well, how do I really have openness on this? Could I listen to an opposing viewpoint on this and still stay open? So that's a good subject in for self-evaluation before we just pass that word off as openness. Oh yeah, that's it.
Sometimes I think openness has many definitions. You know, are you open to my idea? Are you open to this opinion? But I think at the deepness of openness, you kind of leave opinions too. You leave ideas and just allow an answer to come. And that answer is the best answer for that situation and for that person and for yourself at that moment.
I have a notion too. I like the subject and the things you said, but the first thing when you said openness, the thing that came to mind was open-hearted. And I think of open-hearted as a way of listening. You know, we can listen in order to judge, or we can listen in an attitude of open-heartedness. And so for me, that was a way to think of openness. But for me, trust was an issue. And I think that to truly release, there's an element of forgiveness required. Forgiveness to ourselves, forgiveness to others. But as I think about it, getting into an attitude of open-heartedness is the most I can now think of that's like the source or our higher power.
Thank you. I'll wait a few more minutes if anyone has any thoughts on openness or insights on openness or anything they want to share.
The thought that came to me, and Belle had sent me a link to a Brene Brown video, and I haven't seen it in its entirety, but I have heard her speak before. And I think so much of the things that upset and confuse me are because I'm afraid of being vulnerable, and in trying to be right, end up in a defensive posture so often. And then if I could find the courage to be more vulnerable, even with my managers at work, to express the way I'm feeling, that I could possibly repair those relationships.
I think what you have just said, Leslie, is what everyone in the human experience can relate to. So thank you for being vulnerable to share that.
Thank you.
Because it is very meaningful to me, and I think a lot of people too, and very true.
So Leslie, hearing you speak reminded me of one thing I forgot, and that is on the 4 agreements, don't assume anything. And I think that's related here, because when someone's speaking, it's very easy to start assuming just because they are who they are, that you're assuming they're wrong or right. And you kind of shut off if you think they're wrong immediately.
Mark, I just want to say, quickly, because I know time's getting away from us. Very powerful, very powerful. I'm going to have to listen. Everything you were saying, it was like bam, bam, bam. And I think to be open is almost impossible to be able to stay in that space because we've gotten so much imprinting, I'll say, or data or past information that we put into our minds that we act so much automatically, not thinking, not being aware, not being in the now. And I do think the more practice we do, the more we'll remember that it's naturally in us. But it takes awareness to be there. And I definitely am going to be more aware of what I'm saying, what I'm thinking. And I thank you. I thank you. Very, very powerful words you spoke. Thank you.
Yes, it was a very good lesson, and I'm really glad I joined you this morning.
I too enjoyed it. It really was very helpful to me. And I wanted to I thought of something a little funny, but I thought you might appreciate when you're talking about the high fives. I really like that, the high fives to the mirror. But I can remember my husband when he was alive. Do you know the song, It's Hard to Be Humble by Mac Davis? He used to sing that in the mirror every now and then to himself. And I'd get a little perturbed with him, but I thought, yeah, that's a good thing. It's a good thing.
I had a situation happen yesterday. I hang out at Barnes and Noble. I buy a lot of coffee there and books, and I like to read there. I had gone in the day before yesterday, and I had a mask on, but it didn't fully cover my nose. As I entered the bookstore, the lady at the entrance said, "Can you pull your mask up over your nose?" And I complied. Yesterday, I went in, and one of the associates had previously told me that they had some chairs on the floor, and that if I wanted to read in the store, I could take one of those chairs. So yesterday I went in and bought coffee, and I sat in this chair. And I wasn't seated more than a minute before the same lady came over and said, "Ma'am, you're not allowed to sit down and sip your coffee. It's against the rules in the state of Michigan." And so I left, but before I left, I went back to the associate who had told me that I could sit in a chair and said, "She told me I couldn't sit there. I'm leaving. I am so upset with," and so I am still sitting with that experience, and I'm working to relate it to the talk this morning, and I'm trying to decide how to respond. Keeping in mind that this is one of my favorite hangouts and one of life's little pleasures, to just get a cup of coffee and read. Sometimes it's only for half an hour. Sometimes it might be a couple of hours. I don't know if you guys have any advice or thoughts, but once again, I had the feeling of the world coming unraveled, of me becoming unraveled.
Thank you, Leslie. If you don't mind, can I speak to that a little bit?
Certainly.
I'll keep the focus on myself, and that the other day I was upset and walking, and I couldn't be open. You know, this person did that, this person did, another person did this, another person, everything's not right, everything's wrong, and I couldn't stop. And then I realized, I think I'm angry about something. And I hate to feel anger because I have this image of spiritual, I try to keep some kind of spiritual image, and anger is not compatible with that. But the truth is that I needed to become open to my anger. And so I went into the woods and took a stick and started hitting trees and hitting everything I could find and became really angry. And it felt so good because I was open to what was real inside of me at that time. And I saw another branch about 20 feet away, and I was holding a stick, and I said, I bet I could knock that branch right off with the stick. So I threw my stick in the air, 20 feet away, it hit another branch and knocked that branch right off the tree. And I thought, wow, that was pretty good. I never had that accuracy playing baseball. And then underneath that anger was some hurt. So I felt hurt. And so when I'm really feeling my feelings, whether they make sense or not, whether they are tied to a belief that is not tied to reality or not tied to God, but when I feel the feelings, whether pain or anger fully, I become more empty, and then I can be open. I feel more peace, and now I can be open to another wisdom that's willing to share something with me. So that's been my experience. Basically, to be vulnerable to the feelings. And then once I'm there and feel that, I rest in the stillness and then have access to a much greater wisdom than I could have possibly have ever imagined. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. That really is helpful. Sometimes I think in all of this work, I'm not sure how yet, I'm not quite there yet, but it has to do with being able to respond and not just react, but to respond. And to, I'm not sure exactly how to respond, but there are situations where response is necessary.
I want to say something.
Okay, go ahead.
And don't be concerned, because as you persist in loving yourself greater and deeper, forgiving yourself for little moments when you lose patience with yourself, forgiving those people for unknowingly doing something that you felt hurt by. And the more you practice all of that, it's just going to flow. Everything will come into its perfect place for all of us. The more that we focus on the love that we have for ourselves, it'll just radiate out. There's a teaching from the medicine teachings that the place of the Southeast is the place of the ancestors on this medicine wheel. And it's the place where we so love ourselves completely, just for the divine being that we are, that we need do nothing else. And when that love is inside of us that great, wherever we go, it just radiates, and that's the healing.
Thank you, Luann.
Yes.
Many years ago, I used to spend a lot of time in bookstores and drinking their coffee, and it seemed at a certain point they no longer wanted to stock some of the conservative literature, especially conservative bestsellers. So I decided to spend my money on Amazon, and I didn't have to deal with that. So I would, and that's me. Now, this is me speaking. I'm not suggesting anyone else do this, but I'd probably find the books on Amazon, then take them in there and sip their coffee and read them.
That's kind of interesting, Dan, because I sell books on Amazon, but I also support libraries and local bookstores. So it's an issue that's very close to my heart. In fact, I have hundreds of books in my basement that need a home that I haven't had the time or the space to sort through. But I'm going to think on that.
Sandra?
I have
I'm wondering, Sandra, did you have anything that you wanted to share, or? You've been quiet back there, so I just wanted to make a space for you.
No, I keep muting myself, so I'm just listening. Taking it all in. Thank you.
I had just one other thought, and that is when I get, I think I'm really into this, this forgiveness thing. And there's something about when you think about, when you get into a situation like that, I have friends, people I know, who look beyond the hurtful remark that's coming from someone, and they see what they might, I guess they're projecting, what might be causing that hurt feeling, that this person has to express this anger toward me. I'm not very good at doing that at the time, but sometimes in retrospect, the only way to get out of it for me is to forgive myself, forgive the other person, and also let them, in the stillness, as you would say, Mark, let the inspiration for what one might say in that situation. It's unfortunate that I can't do it right at the time, but sometimes as an afterthought, it's a lesson for me in how I might handle that situation in the future. And I do believe there are times when we need to say something, if it isn't any more than straightening out in my own mind what the other person meant by saying it. But I think it's always best to get yourself in an open-hearted state, away from the situation perhaps, and think of what that might be. And in the instance that you're talking about, I could see a letter that you might write to the store to say how much you enjoy the store, but what kindnesses you might expect from the employees or whatever. I don't know how you do that. I'm not knowledgeable about those kinds of things, but that's how I would, in my own mind, I would work it out through that process of loving it.
Yeah.
But I did like Mark, I did like your idea of hitting trees. I wouldn't want to hurt a tree, but I have, I remember one time in particular when I very seldom cry, but I just let it all out. I bawled for an hour by myself. And finally, I was just so tired from the experience of letting it all out, just releasing it, that I don't know, some positive source came in and healed it for me.
Mm-hmm. I think tears are a very positive a healing that you guys have heard me talk about Toko Pa Turner. She says, do you ever notice that a person is more beautiful after they've wept? It was definitely a a grief kind of experience. And of course, having lost my mom, I'm still feeling that grief acutely every day. And then losing my political party, losing faith in our world governments. I think tears are very helpful. And Virginia, I liked your idea of a letter because I had that thought as well. And the whole, the idea that, well, I don't want to offend anyone, but when I walked into that store and the lady tells me to adjust my mask, she's assuming that I am sick and that by breathing, I'm potentially causing her harm. And I'm not sick. And if I was, it would be from smoking too much, not from having COVID. So it's the implication that we're all diseased people and we can't freely walk the earth. It was very painful.
Leslie, can I just say something real quick? What I think is you got to go back to what Mark said on the love part. You can deal with your ego till your day you die, trying to make something right on what the ego was telling you, and that you're assuming that's what she thought. You don't know, and it's not. Doesn't have anything to do with her. Right. Absolutely nothing. This is between you and yourself and God. But I know time's getting away from us, Mark, so you probably want to bring us to a...
Well, let us close now. Thank you for everyone and for your joining me today and for contributing to the community with your ideas and insights and with you just being you. And in closing, we will do the prayer of protection. We will do the peace song followed by the prayer of protection. And so, I don't know, I don't want to really sing the peace song because I have no music to cover up my voice.
I will.
I will. You know the words?
Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as my brother, family are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me.
Thank you. And now for the prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is. I am divine. And that's the truth. Thank you, guys. I'm going to leave the Zoom up so you guys can say goodbye, and I'm going to just step away. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you,
Yes,
thank you.
thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Bill. Have a
I'll see you Wednesday, right? No, yes,